Welcome to On the Whistle. Wherever you're listening, I hope you fired up the braai because we are football's biggest braai. I hope that you've got some nice meat on your grill, on the coals. I hope you've got something nice and cold because you're going to love this podcast we've got coming up. But before we get there, I have to tell you, interact with us, talk to us. OTW_podcast. That's where you find us on Twitter. That's where you find us on Instagram. And of course, our Facebook group, On the Whistle podcast. And today, I'm really excited. We're going to my home province, my home city in South Africa, and that's Durban, to talk to the owner of AmaZulu, the mighty Usuthu. With us today, we have Sandile Zungu. Sandile, thank you for joining us on the podcast. How are you doing this fine morning?
And thank you so much for having me, Zayn. Wonderful. I'm on top of the world. The weather in Johannesburg, where I am right now, I was in Durban the whole of last week, is superb. It's threatening to go spring. I couldn't be in a happier place. Thank you.
Going into spring, we're going into winter. I'll trade you the weather. But Sandile, listen, you have done incredible things at AmaZulu. And I have to ask you, how are you feeling entering this historic season where AmaZulu are going to play in African competition for the first time?
It's a very important milestone year for us. Just to put it in perspective, we are 89 years old this year. And we're marching solidly towards the centenary year in 2032. And for the first time this season, we'll be playing outside of South Africa competitively. We've gone, of course, outside of South Africa to play in friendly matches in Swaziland, in Zimbabwe, but we're now going to go to Malawi to play against the big guns there. If we succeed, we're going to go to DRC. The continent is an oyster for us. It's an important emotional moment that we're faced with. We believe we're equal to the task because we've got the players, we've got the supporters behind us. We have the whole community raring and rooting for us, really. We've got a technical team to match. Now, we have to be excited. Of course, there's an element of anxiety and fear because we know we're now going to be playing champions, but we are very excited.
Sandile, let's rewind a little bit for our global audience out there, our African audience out there on the continent. Why did you buy AmaZulu? You're an investment banker, so I know you look at risk. I know you look at reward. And many would have seen AmaZulu as a depreciating asset, a brand that was past its heyday, the last success for a major trophy coming in the 90s. What did you see that others did not?
Let's look at it frankly. AmaZulu is potentially the biggest team in South Africa. Let that sink in. Potentially the biggest club, bigger than Kaizer Chiefs, bigger than Orlando Pirates, bigger than Mamelodi Sundowns, potentially. And not disrespect to my counterparts there. I know that it's a club which is steeped in tradition. It's got a long history. It was founded with the blessing of the Zulu royalty. The mighty Zulu nation stands behind the soccer team. In actual fact, they gave it the name Zulu Royals. And only in the last 2 or 3 decades, it changed its name to AmaZulu Football Club because it was quite clear it is now embraced by the whole nation, not just the royalty. So if you think about 14 million people of KwaZulu-Natal province, Indian, white, colored, African, you name it, they have a very soft spot for AmaZulu. And if you are Zulu, whether you're in Gauteng or in Durban, you have a very soft spot for this team called AmaZulu, which has a name with the nation's name. So we just have to play well. We have to bring silverware. We have to play the brand of soccer We have to demonstrate our prowess and our personality beyond the playing field in such a way that it appeals to these people who are basically sleeping supporters of AmaZulu Football Club. When we do that, you will see for yourself that the investment that I made into AmaZulu Football Club was not misinformed. So I see AmaZulu Football Club being the largest team with a registered membership base in South Africa. And when you do that, then the return on investment becomes obvious, because when we decide 1 year, we're going out. We're going to sign Aubameyang. He's reached his matured date in Europe. He wants to now come and play in Africa.
Am I hearing that right?
Hear it well. With the day we go, like Manchester United pitching for the services of Ronaldo, the day we say, Aubameyang, you have played all your life in Europe, come and play in Africa. Come and play for AmaZulu Football Club, even if it's just for 1 season. But he says, but you can't afford me. And I said, but the supporters of AmaZulu Club want you and they can afford you. And now if we have 14 million people behind us, and each one of them saying, we're chipping in our 100 rands to bring in Aubameyang just for 2 seasons, anything is possible. So I'm saying I bought into a team steeped in tradition, a brand that is a sleeping giant that has got a prospect for being woken up, and we will awaken this giant. And the return on investment as a business person would become pretty obvious. And all I can do, Zayn, is say, watch the space.
Well, we've been watching the space. And when you took over the club, Sandile, you spoke very boldly about winning trophies. And in your first season properly in charge, your new coach that you brought in, Benni McCarthy, led the team to 2nd in the Premier Soccer League. When you look back at last season, what is your assessment?
Last season, we surprised a lot of people. We did not surprise ourselves, because I've always been a firm believer in one's capacity. The difference between myself and some of my peers is that I'm vocal in outlining what my ambition is. When I do so, it's because I want to commit myself, because the world now knows this is where I've set my stars, my eyes. That's the star that I've set my eyes on. And it commits me to double my efforts towards achieving that objective. So we set ourselves a goal. We surprised a lot of people because they were not expecting us to give them that kind of competition. And we ended up not only in the top 4, but in number 2 position. We had players who were eager to prove themselves. And indeed, they proved themselves. They became household names. They are now recognizable faces when they go in shopping centers. For young men, that is quite important, to be recognized. And we have a technical team that wanted to prove itself, and Benni McCarthy, who was getting a second chance in coaching, who wanted to show the world that it was not a fluke the first time around. So all the stars aligned. And we achieved what we did through grit, through sheer force of effort. This year, we've had, call it 3 games this season. We're knocked out in the MTN Cup, disappointed, but absolutely not humiliated, not devastated, not at all. We've played 2 league games against the champions, Mamelodi Sundowns. We lost away from home in a penalty, or through a penalty, and we drew against Mamelodi Swallows. We've had a baptism of fire this season. We think we are equal to the task. This season is going to be our season. It's going to be AmaZulu Football Club season. And I can assure you on that one.
Sandile, why is Benni so crucial to this project? Why did you want him to coach the club?
I was looking for a person that epitomizes what we stand for. We want to be an aspirational brand. And which soccer player does not want to be a Benni McCarthy? Which soccer player does not want to play in Europe and lift the much coveted cup? Who does not want to be the record holder in Bafana for the longest time? Who doesn't want to be the heartthrob of young people? And Benni McCarthy symbolizes ambition. Here he symbolizes aspiration. And that's what AmaZulu Football Club, as rejigged, symbolizes. So we wanted a brand alignment. And most importantly, we wanted someone who does not want to lose. Benni is not a loser. He does not like losing. We don't like losing either. But we are agreed that we will not win at all costs. We don't want to be that soccer team that kicks people out, that ends opposition careers. We played clean, we win clean, and that's Benni McCarthy for you. He has been a perfect fit for us at AmaZulu, and he has delivered in his first season. And we have him for this season and another season. And we're all aligned that we've got to prove ourselves, want to prove ourselves as the new owners, and he wants to prove himself as a coach. There's a shared interest there. He's young. It's very important to work with people that you can relate with, because you are the same generation and you can talk the same talk and do the same do. And quite frankly, even from a marketing point of view, young people relate with AmaZulu because you've got a good coach. You've got Benni McCarthy. When we flying out to Cape Town or Bloemfontein or Johannesburg, we've got to arrive there at least 15, 20 minutes before the scheduled time to allow for people to have autographs and to take photos, selfies with Benni. And he's alive to those kind of commitments to the community. And we love that spirit, that, be the people's person. These are important stakeholders in our life as AmaZulu Football Club. They must not feel pushed off and fobbed off by a coach because he's got a grumpy personality. He's got a very warm personality that actually reinforces our brand building efforts. You can now understand why we chose Benni McCarthy.
That makes a lot of sense. And I was reading somewhere, Sandile, where you said you want a young lady who's aspirant in Umlazi to come to your games. Talk to me about why you would want that type of consumer, supporter at your games.
If you look at the demographics of AmaZulu Football Club supporters right now, one will say that Zulu, they are traditionalists, they are most likely either old or born into families that are traditional supporters of AmaZulu Football Club. And for me, that's a sign of death. Because you cannot grow a brand if you are patronized by people who see it as a novelty, kind of a project. We've got to build a support base among young people. I want to see this team attract young people in Northern Cape who have nothing to do with the Zulu culture, but who just love the kind of soccer we play. And when we lift trophies, they say, when I associate with the winning team, if they are bored at home on Sunday, they rather watch an AmaZulu match because it's got entertainment value. And when we do that, then we start attracting young people who will come to the stadium not to sing war cries and to shout slogans, but who will be dancing to the sound of amapiano in the stands, who will be dancing to the sound of gqom in the stands during halftime, and who will see this as swag when they wear our fashion apparel. And those people will be mothers of the future, and they will be fathers of the future. And that's how we broaden our base of supporters. So that by the time we turn 100 in 2032, when I look at the demographics of AmaZulu supporters at the time, I must be able to say, compared to where we were in 2021, it's a massive transformation, which talks to a future brand. And when we grow, our support base in countries like DRC, Congo, Morocco. Why? Because we'll be playing the giants in those countries, because we feature prominently in the CAF Champions League. They must see what we do in the stands and say, hey, we like the vibe here. We like to associate. You know what? These guys are playing good soccer. Next time you come around, please bring me the AmaZulu jersey. Or where can I get this AmaZulu jersey? And that's how you grow the brand. It's going to be a slow process, but a very determined and a very conscious effort to shift the support base from what it is now, which we deeply appreciate, by the way, but towards the demographics that talks to aspiration, and that talks to growth, and that talks to the future and sustainability.
I think broadening the brand is always a good thing. I think Jay-Z, the famous rapper, said that he made the Yankee cap more famous than any Yankees player. And I'd say the same about Ice Cube with the Raiders cap and how they popularized that all through the world with their group NWA. So certainly can see the value of that and love you're talking about Gqom, a traditional sound that comes out of South Africa that can get anyone dancing and moving. But to bring it back to football for a minute, I know that in your preseason press conferences, Benni McCarthy spoke about going into Africa, competing in Africa, and he believes the team can potentially do better than Kaizer Chiefs, who made the finals of the CAF Champions League last season. Do you share that sentiment?
Look, Benni was throwing some banter, and I think for us in South Africa, we appreciate that. Throwing jabs from time to time. It was absolutely not out of disrespect for Kaizer Chiefs. I think Kaizer Chiefs did us all South Africans proud by going all the way to the finals, losing against what I'll call the best team in the continent, Al Ahly. Coached by the best coach in the continent, Pitso Mosimane. Quite frankly, we would have been very naive to think that Kaizer Chiefs will build Al Ahly in North Africa, for that matter. So the results spoke for themselves. But it's fact that Kaizer Chiefs do not have the season they can be proud of in the local scene. They made it into the top 8 by a whisker. And if they did that, and us going into the Champions League on a high, we are encouraged that if we do the right things, we take each game, one game at a time, and do thorough preparations, we can again surprise a lot of people. We can again go all the way to the final. And once we're in the final, it's anybody's 90 minutes. So Benni was correct in affirming our confidence about what we can do. For now, we're focused on the game against the Nyasa Big Bullets, who will be coming down to South Africa on the 10th of September. And that sets our campaign hopefully on a sound footing.
Sandile, our podcast speaks to many people, and one of our recent ones had 4-time PSL winning coach Gavin Hunt on our podcast. He actually coached Benni back in the day at 7 Stars, so they know each other well. And he said he called Benni to congratulate him on the amazing season he had at AmaZulu. But he also said to us that he thinks that Benni overachieved in his first season, and he doesn't have the squad to compete on 2 fronts, in Africa and domestically. How would you respond to his assessment of Benni and of course, the AmaZulu team?
Well, the opinion of someone like Gavin Hunt, matters to us. I think he's someone who is highly respected. And the fact is that he talks from experience. He took Kaizer Chiefs into the continent last season. And really, he left Kaizer Chiefs, I think, when they reached the semifinals. So he talks from experience. I mean, he knows what depth you need to really worm your way through such rough terrains.
Yeah, and he spoke about the travel, for example, being really tough. You've got to go and get a draw somewhere and then come and play on a Wednesday in the local league, and that's what really kills you.
That's right, and so we take his advice to heart. We call it advice because we anticipated that, and you will see that during the preseason we signed quite a few players. I think we brought to book maybe 10 players who are very dynamic, young, ambitious. They still have to gel together to deliver the kind of performance that we had last year. Did he overachieve? There, I will beg to differ. I don't think that getting 54 points and having such a huge gap between number one and number two has no scope for improvement. I think as a number two, we can still achieve 62 points and still be number two. Hopefully at 62, you should be number one. And that's what we're aiming for. You know, I believe that Benni identified areas of improvement, identified areas of weakness, and he's focused on them. And that he will prove to doubting Thomases, wherever they are, that he's not a dead cat bounce. He's not a one-trick pony, that he is dynamic, and that he's one for the future. And the platform called AmaZulu Football Club is a perfect platform for Benni McCarthy because he gets the support that he needs from the management, from the owners, and there's a deep respect for him. And so he will succeed. And with us by his side, nothing will be impossible.
We've seen Patrice Motsepe pump a lot of investment into Sundowns. They are the gold standard in South African football over the last decade. What is it going to take to stop them winning another championship this season?
Everyone is intent on dethroning Mamelodi Sundowns from the apex position. They've done exceptionally well, and I'm very proud of Patrice for his personal achievements. I'm very proud of Patrice and his team, Mamelodi Sundowns, for their consistent accomplishments in the local scene as well as in the continent. But, you know, they've raised the bar and everyone wants to dethrone them. We've had to raise our own bar because we can win other teams, but if we cannot unseat Mamelodi Sundowns, then playing second fiddle. We cannot play second fiddle forever. For us, this is our second season. We don't want to be too hard on ourselves if we don't achieve as quickly, but the ambition is very clear. And this is a competitive game. The ambition is very clear. We want to dethrone Mamelodi Sundowns, and we want to take that seat because it's up for grabs. They're not destined to be in that seat forever. Kaizer Chiefs used to be the golden boys of soccer in South Africa. I don't know what went wrong, but something went wrong. They are not in the apex position that they were once were. But Mamelodi Sundowns happened, and I hope that in 10 years' time they can look back and say AmaZulu Football Club happened, and they're now at the apex of South African soccer. And they're a household name in the continent because they've consistently played in CAF Champions League, preferably, or Confederations Cup at West.
Just a couple more questions before we go, Sandile, and thank you for being so generous with your time. There are 4 teams in the province of KwaZulu-Natal now. There's yourselves, AmaZulu, Golden Arrows, Maritzburg United, and Royal AM. Certainly great for football in the KwaZulu-Natal region to have 4 teams in the Premier Soccer League. I guess it would be remiss of me not to ask you what your view was on the sale of Bloemfontein Celtic and how that club has now become Royal AM. Really sad to see an institution like Celtic not exist anymore, but for the people of KwaZulu-Natal, I guess exciting that there's another team that they can, another team that they could perhaps throw their weight behind.
Well, starting with the fact that we now have 4 teams in the province, it's good for us as AmaZulu, because it means there will be less travel outside of the province. Travel and accommodation is a major cost in running a soccer team. So it's a bit of savings there. And number 2 is good for the people of KwaZulu-Natal, where we draw our biggest support base, to have so much competition. It actually rejuvenates them. And it's even a greater objective for us to have bragging rights to be the giants of KwaZulu-Natal, that we've got Maritzburg, got Royal AM and Lamontville Golden Arrows to contend with. It's tragic, though, that Bloemfontein Celtics is no more. For all I know, there are efforts to revive them. I suppose local Free State business people are now re-inspired to dig in their pockets and bring back that brand to the eyes of the public. How it's going to happen, I have no idea. But they need to smell themselves in their own armpits. How did they allow the situation to develop? Because quite clearly, Bloemfontein Celtics was not coping. It was undercapitalized. It had a mountain of debts. It violated player rights. And it was punished by FIFA or CAF and just about every institution. So it was unseemly to have a professional team like Bloemfontein Celtics limp along from one season to another without, any sign of growth. They performed well in the field. They made it to the Telkom Cup the previous season. They made it to MTN Cup finals last season. They did very well. They're a strong team, good players. But Royal M has not performed well in the last 2 games. And understandably so, because they did not have a preseason as Royal M. The fact that you have the same players who are playing together at Bloemfontein Celtics, but they're now based in Durban. They now have a different boss. There are different expectations. They may be fit physically, but they do not have a preseason as Royal AM. And so one has got to be forgiving to them. I think the new owner, Shaun Mkhize, is a great woman. She needs to be supported and encouraged as a woman in soccer, rather than held at with insults. So we are those that really embrace her and wish her luck and success. But at the same time, we cannot hide our misgiving that the brand Bloemfontein Celtics is no more.
No, I think that's great perspective. And the last question I have for you is, and we'll give the mic to you for one last message, but what is your message to Usuthu fans in the country and around the world? I know you said that this is the team associated with the Zulu Nation all over the country, but I can tell you it's also associated with the Zulu Nation in London, the Zulu Nation in New York, the Zulu Nation in Beijing, the Zulu Nation in Sydney, the Zulu Nation in Mars, wherever you are. This is the team that is associated with that. And I guess, what is your final message to them? Are you on track for 2032?
Well, my message to what I'll call the AmaZulu faithful is thank you so much for remaining faithful to AmaZulu through the years when they really were not giving you the return on your loyalty. Times have changed. We are marching towards our centenary. And at the year of our centenary, we're going to look back at the decade past and we'll say that was our decade. It hasn't started. This season is the last season before we start our last decade into our centenary. The plans are afoot. Stand behind us, stand by our side, and show your support to the extent that you can. We'll need all hands on deck. AmaZulu is going to be a team that will bring pride to every home of AmaZulu faithful. And we're very excited about the campaign that we've undertaken. It's going to be very, very exciting. There'll be replicas of AmaZulu by them. There'll be Usuthu Fridays. You'll be notified about them. There'll be annual celebrations leading to our centenary, Usuthu Day on the 1st of October. Those campaigns will allow AmaZulu faithful, wherever they are, in Beijing or Kuala Lumpur, to come out and say, we are proudly AmaZulu Football Club. And the advent of social media makes it all possible to all get together in one.
Perfect. Sandile, well, let's leave it there. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. And for those who are listening, come on, leave a rating, leave a review if you've come this far. Tell us what you think. Tell us if Usuthu can go one better than they did last season. Tell us how you think they'll do in Africa in the debut. Tell us which star in Europe you'd like to see at the club. Well, that's it for On the Whistle. We salute you all out there. Have a great week.